Welcome to the Middle Ages, a podcast hosted by two women in midlife navigating the wild, liberating, and often hilarious realities of this chapter of life. With a mix of insight, irreverence, and real talk, they explore everything from changing bodies and shifting identities to evolving relationships, work, and purpose. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's a whole new beginning.
Diane.
Hello. How are you, Steph?
I'm good. I'm coming off a very busy week, but I feel really great, like really settled and sort of like tired, but also quite settled. But the bigger question is, how are you? Give us an update since last week.
Oh, I'm coming off a very emotional week. So as I mentioned last week, I drove my kiddo across BC, it's a ferry ride away and then another few drives. So it's a 6-hour trip in total to get him settled in university. And going there was all about doing, right? Like we were just in the masculine energy of do, wasn't feeling much. And then my daughter came with me and we stayed at a hotel, dropped him off at his dorm. He won the lottery with the dorm. He has a double room dorm for just a single person. It's big, it's spacious, it's really nice. And the next morning I got up early, went for a walk, and he messages me at 6:30 and says, "Are you coming to pick me up? Or we can go do errands and hang out." Like, ooh, that concerns me. That was really early. So I was curious how he was going to be. He was a little grumpy, which is just him, navigating his own emotions. And then at 1:00, he said, "Okay, you guys can drop me off at school now. I'm good." And so we did that. And I have to say, Steph, and I'm going to get teary as I say this, dropping my kid off at school 6 hours away with an ocean separating us, knowing I'm not going to see him for at least a month, and not sure how he's going to navigate this, was a heartbreaking experience. And I know there's a lot of mamas out there who can relate. I have so many friends that are doing it this year. It takes so much trust to be able to do that. Trust that I have provided all the right guidance, trust that he has grown his wings, trust that he is ready. And I totally do have trust. And my heart felt very heartbroken. And I have to say, that was one experience. And then in the car next to me, I heard a dad get in his car and go, "Woohoo!" So I guess it depends on your kid. I guess it depends on, we worked for 18 years to get him to this point. And for sure, there's a celebration and there's a little tenderness. And this week, like coming home that night, we got home really late that night, my daughter and I, and dropped her off at her home and came home alone. And it's very quiet in my house. I've cleaned up his room. I've repainted scuffs on the wall. I've opened up his blinds, which if anybody has a teenager, you might know that blinds aren't always open. And ever. And I wander a little bit around the house, just longing for energy, longing for him. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm really happy. He's been checking in with me. He's FaceTimed me a few times and he's really doing great. And so that's a big, like my shoulders just relax. He's calling people friends. He's making connections. He's getting out of his room and going to have meals with people, walk around Victoria. Like he's doing really, really great. So I have a big relief. And let me tell you the positive side of this. As much as I miss him, I go to bed at night. And he's a pretty clean kid. He always cleans up after himself. He empties my dishwasher. He takes the dog out. Like he's a great kid. And in the mornings, I would get up because whatever snack he had from the time I went to bed till he went to sleep would usually have residuals somewhere in the kitchen, usually in the sink. I get up in the morning and my sink is as clean as when I went to bed. I'm just a little bit giddy about that.
You've set him up, right? His ability to be grounded and flourish there, like he's gonna become a totally different person. He's so wise and he's had so much amazing energy from you, and he's gonna now be safe enough to go out there and become this new version of himself, which I think is so exciting. But I also get the trust piece, right? Like when my daughter got her driver's license earlier this year, there was a tendency for me to and I'm pretty like laid back about this stuff, but there was this part of me that was just like, all these things that could go wrong and all these things that could happen. And I should be with her and I should be teaching her these things. And you know what? She just had to go and do it.
Yeah.
And now I have no, like, I know there's always risk for everybody, but she just earned her wings, right? And she did it. And she went out and I just had to trust her
Yeah.
to be smart and make good decisions and all that kind of stuff. And it's, and it's true. She's done it. But like that empty space now that you have it's loud, right? Like it's big. She was away.
The silence is loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't know if you remember me talking to you last week and I was like, Parker's been away for, 4 days or whatever it was. And I was like, there's no one in my house.
Mm. Yeah.
There's no one in my house, right? It's here. So you're managing it all kind of day to day, but this brings us really nicely to our topic this week, which is all about play. And I think play is something that comes when we get space and when we get mental space and physical space and energetic space. And I feel like you're really good at building play into your life. And I just wonder how much more of it there's going to be in your life. But maybe what we start by is talking about what we define as play. What is play?
Yeah. So I think I am really good at play. And this really, it's just in the last 3 or 4 years that I've been very intentional about the amount of play that I bring into my life, because I am a single woman, because my kids were getting older and didn't need me as much. I needed to find what makes me happy. And last week we talked about playgrounds, like where are the places that we can play? But if we talk about play right now, I think play is not a luxury. It's essential for healthy aging. And especially as we're going through these transitions where kids need us less or kids move on, work is in a different space as well. Like, again, Steph, you work a whole lot more than I do, but I also returned to work this week after having all the summer off. And as I return to work, my big question is, how do I keep a balance of work play? And for me, it's all about balance. And play is about, how do I access my joy? How do I cultivate creativity? How do I build connection? How do I stay physically and mentally stimulated and engaged? So those are all sort of the principles of play. And then we've put together a manual, and in it I've written down that it's about living with curiosity, pleasure, and vitality. And I think those are 3 qualities that we really need in the Middle Ages: curiosity, pleasure, and vitality. And if we can access that, then we start to feel more joy.
And so to bring, as I do, to bring the sort of pragmatic devil's advocate side of this in like, what prevents us from prioritizing play? And I think that there's a whole mindset out there, and I don't even think it's a mindset. I think it's absolutely, it comes from a very justified place, but that play is a privilege. Like, it's for privilege.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into that a little bit, because I do think that the further you get out from that time that you step out of being this like full-time parent and all of the obligations, the further you get out, I think the more you realize and condition yourself, or you should anyway, to know that being playful and having play in your life is really, really essential. But I think when we're just sort of stepping out of that life, we're still conditioned to think that's a luxury. That's very self-centered. It is a privilege to have, and maybe that's not something we should prioritize. We should be prioritizing, what does everybody else need? Like, what should I be doing?
Yeah. And then to that, I always say, why are you shooting all over yourself? Those are simply conditioned responses. And the reality is, play, it's not a luxury. As I said earlier, it's essential for healthy aging. So there's research that shows that we need different levels, different kinds of play, with one being cognitive play. And that's things like games and music and puzzles, things that stimulate our brain. Super important, especially for anybody. Like, we have to think about this stuff. I'm 10 years ahead of you. And my father developed Alzheimer's roughly 10 years from where I am now. And so we know the research shows that there's higher genetic risk for Alzheimer's disease in people who do not stimulate cognitive play. So word games, volunteering, socializing, I do the connections and the Wordle pretty well every night. And it's something I do not because I get like tons of pleasure over it, but I mean, I certainly like it when I win. But it's about I know that it's important to keep my brain super active because there is a risk of Alzheimer's in my lineage. So I think the cognitive well-being is something we can all do, and likely would benefit from starting as like the minute you hear this conversation. How can you do things, puzzles, games, play music? Music is great for creativity through those realms of play that help to develop cognitive well-being. I'll just pause there and see what you'd like to add.
Yeah, that one is so easy for me because I'm really motivated by learning, and I get really excited by developing a new skill or learning a new thing, and I'm very, very curious. My partner is obsessed with puzzles. I mean, I think he's doing like a puzzle a day or something. It's ridiculous. But Lego and puzzles and those kinds of things that are both like tactile as well as creative. I know for me, like what I love doing is something that gives me both the play and the production. So knitting or
Mhm,
these don't have to be hobbies either. This could
mhm,
be learning something new, a
mhm,
new skill or what have you.
mhm.
I think the key defining factor here with cognitive play is because it can sort of meander into work.
Yes.
That it's something that we do just for pleasure, for enrichment, for
For the
just
delight of it. For the
for the
delight of
delight,
it. Yes.
just because we can,
Yes.
right? Just because, and it's not needed by anything. It's not a responsibility. It's not meant to give you, more professional standing. It is just simply there for delight.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here for the delight of it. And can we play? And can we be here for the play of it too? I come from the spiritual background of yogi, teaching yoga, and yoga is very disciplined. Yoga is like in traditional yoga, the yoga master, teacher, guru would tell the student when to progress to the next level of yoga. It was so disciplined. And the lineage that I teach, practice, and study is really has so much more freedom because it's all about, well, have joy in it, enjoy it, be playful. How can you develop more curiosity, more playfulness, more opportunities to engage without being so strict? And so it does require a shift in mindset. I mean, it does in yoga, but it also does in real life. We're so conditioned to work, 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 take care of the family, work, 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 family moves out, work, 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 and we put play aside. Now, I'm going to say we, meaning the collective, and I think women more than men. Men are really good at picking up the activities once they hit about 40, and women don't do it as easily. Um, yeah, they just don't do it as easily. So the other quality of play that's really important is, of course, physical health and physical well-being. And again, are you doing it for a goal? Are you doing it for an end? Or are you doing it for the play of it? And I think that's really important. Not that, working out can be fun, but I don't love working out. Like, it doesn't make me laugh and feel that all those really good feel hormones that make me feel alive. It helps my body feel alive. But motion through play is really important, and anything that you can do that helps to improve cholesterol, blood pressure, cardiovascular fitness, balance, um, any of that's going to help to increase agility, longevity of life, strength, and overall wellness as we get past the Middle Ages.
So let me offer a different perspective on working out. I was
Mhm.
at the gym yesterday, and 3 of my favorite gym buddies came at the same time. I mean, most
Beautiful.
of them live in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we were plus 2 of the trainers were there, and we had the most hilarious session. We were all doing our workouts, but we were laughing and we were just being goofy and, developing more of our relationship with each other as we do every single time. But it was in the context of what I sort of consider to be physical play. For
Yeah.
me, I'm really motivated by goals and data, and that's fun for me. I don't like to do it if I don't have that, but that's why we're like wired so differently. But I would still consider that to be play because it was fun, it was delightful, it was part of building that community that I have, right?
Yeah, so you're blending the physical health of play with the social connection part of play. We call that the heart of play. We go from
Mhm.
motion through play to the heart of play, and that's wonderful. I don't go to the gym. I go to yoga studios. I do a lot of play outside, and I went to the gym with my daughter last Monday after dropping off my son. We had like a 4-hour wait for the ferry. And so she said, "Can we go to a gym in this little local town that we were in?" And it's like, okay. And I went to the gym with her, and like, there's nothing social for me about the gym. I work out my body. So it's just different perspectives. Yet when I go to the pickleball court, that's a massive social experience. And I've met so many people. I have so many friends. We do things outside of pickleball now. So I've blended the two as well. So whatever works for you, whatever makes you laugh, whatever makes you feel connected is the right thing for you. And everyone's going to have a different experience. Some people go golfing. That's their thing. I don't know if I'll ever do 9 holes, let alone 18 on a golf course. Like, it's just not my thing right now. But I have to say, here we are in this beautiful community on the west coast of Canada, where the mountains meet the oceans, and it's the play capital of Canada. You know that we have that status of play capital of Canada, and we can't go out and play. And it's super frustrating, especially this week where I felt more than ever I was going to want to have connection, want to have movement, get out to the pickleball courts, go for hikes with friends. And we have the most ridiculous air quality index alerts right now that are some of the worst in the world. So we can't even
Yeah,
in
we
good
were ranked
health do
we were
that.
ranked on Tuesday, on Wednesday, the number 1 worst air quality in the world.
Scary.
Like,
And it's for those
it
of you who don't know, it's from smoke coming from fire. We don't have fires immediately in our vicinity, but there are enough fires around British Columbia, the province that we're in, that the smoke is now sort of somehow, for some reason, filtering into our little tiny valley of Squamish.
Yeah. And we have an interesting community here because it is the outdoor recreation capital of, I think, the world,
Mhm.
and, at least in Canada, and everyone here prioritizes play,
Yeah.
right? Everyone here they live here because you can walk across the street and be in, like, 300 kilometers of trails.
Yeah.
You can go up one way and be in the mountains, and go the other way and be at the ocean, be in rivers, lakes. Like, it's a phenomenally beautiful part of the world. And
Mhm.
so when we all I'd be so curious to see someone do like some research on this culture inside this town because it is so play based. People
Mm.
move here specifically so that they can play and that they can have pleasure in their lives beyond, just, going out for dinner or with friends. Now, I think we've swung in the other direction where we don't get to do that kind of play very much here. Like, everything closes at 9 o'clock and people just don't go out for dinner. They don't go out just to hang out.
Yeah.
And I find that we have a little bit of an imbalance here in terms of all the different types of play that exist. And maybe that's a good segue for us to keep moving on to the other types of play.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, the physical play here in Squamish, climbing, mountain biking, not far away, skiing and snowboarding,
Whitewater, all of it.
whitewater
Yeah.
sports, lots of rivers, like all of that. It's super attracting for people. And I do think it's internationally. Like, I get on calls with people all over the world, and oh my gosh, you live in Squamish. Wow, I really want to go there, or I've been there. So it is definitely an attracting place for people that are into physical play. And I think the part that you're talking about again is the social connection, the heart of play, and it leads to loneliness. People come here thinking it's going to be all beautiful, like rainbows and butterflies. I'm going to be climbing, I'm going to be making tons of friends. And unless we make an intention to make friends, we don't make friends. And loneliness is a major risk factor for health decline. And it increases as we get older through the Middle Ages. Our families leave, heartbreak, and our work. Sometimes a lot of people, their work environment is changing. Maybe they've lost their partners. So there's a lot of contributing factors to loneliness. And if we just do physical play, but we don't engage the social connection, the heart of play, it can lead to a lot of depression and feelings of loneliness with people in the Middle Ages.
And it's funny because this is actually known as a very exclusionary community. Like if you are not a I've been lived here for 20 years and I've never felt welcomed here. Like I have
Oh,
friends and I know lots of people, but because I'm not somebody who is like I'm active and I do my things, but I have a heart condition which doesn't let me be like a crazy active. And people here come here because they're insane athletes, like literally crazy.
yeah.
And so if you are not part of that community, you don't get invited. That's what all the social everything social is about here, is about how badass are you of an athlete.
Yeah.
And I've always found that really hard. And people don't just go out and hang out here, and you don't get invited to events at people's houses because it's always based on what big crazy activity did you do today, some epic ride or an epic hike or whatever. So I've certainly found my friends here for sure, but I think it's a very, very difficult community to become part of if the physical play isn't as much of a priority for you as for these people.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I have, the first year I was here was really difficult. I didn't know how to meet people. I was looking exclusively for people my age to connect with, and eventually that did happen. And now my friends range from, like, 28 to 75, and it's been wonderful because it gives me an opportunity to sort of tap into different groups for different things. You and I talked about that last week, and I get it. Like, there is a little bit of exclusionary mindset around people, and I'm going to also say, if there's there's an addiction, right? Like, we have an adrenaline seeking community, and the question that I always go to is, what are you running from? Right? Like, it's one thing to be a climber, to be a mountain biker, to like to do those things, but if it's your identification, if that's how you identify, is I am a mountain biker, instead of like, I'm a friggin' human being and I love to mountain bike and I love to go and do this and I love to go dancing. And so people tend to overly identify with their sport, with their activity, and it becomes who they are. And then the Middle Ages hits and we can't
Right.
sustain that, right?
Right.
Or an injury comes up, and then who are you? So I feel like for you and I, Steph, like, we have a bit more of a balance, and maybe that comes with the Middle Ages, with wisdom, more of a balance of how do we go into all those places of play and intersect them as much as possible, and also take time and do the work to not overly identify. Like, I know, Steph, you don't say first thing, I'm a mountain biker. It's like, I'm I'm a mom, I run my business, I have friends, I like to do this. Like, those are sort of important parts of who we are. And when we overly identify with one part, we can get really stuck there.
Yeah, and even if that's not physical play, like, even if it was something else, I think
Yeah.
that's where we get a little bit, tripped up because, again, that sense of identity that's so important, right? Oh, hi, Steve. Steve is here, hanging out with us today. It's
Oh,
awesome.
Steve.
Um, yeah, and he says, I think that's very common in a lot of sort of gearhead towns in BC because there's a lot of them here, right? You go to
For sure.
Revelstoke, you go to, and it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's very exclusionary, and I've heard a lot of people come here and say it's really hard to make friends here.
Mhm.
So let's not focus too much on that. Like, so let's talk about the other forms of play. What are the other forms of play?
Yeah, I'll get to them. I just wanted to add as well, when it comes to, like, how do we make friends? Like, we talked about that last week, like, just stepping up. And this is what I see with my kiddo now at university. Like, I said, who did you have dinner with? And he said, well, I just asked someone to join me for dinner. And I said, how did you know them? He says, I just got to know them. It's like, cool, right? We have to remember that sometimes we make it too hard, and
Mm,
it doesn't have to be so hard.
yeah.
The other area around play taps into and serves our emotional and creative well-being, and that's where we can find play for joy, purpose, and resilience. So when we're talking about play, it releases endorphins, it boosts our mood, it reduces the stress hormone. So cortisol is the biggest stress hormone, and as soon as it starts moving into our body, we get this cascade of emotions that is a result of the hormones that are running through us. So when we can engage in play, in creative play, we start to change the balance of our hormones. And when I look at the research that talks about mental health, over the mental health challenges for women over the age of 55 is increasing. A lot of it has to do with hormonal shifts, which I know we're going to have to do an episode on the hormonal shifts for the Middle Ages. But perimenopause, menopause leads to mood swings, leads to depression, leads to anxiety, leads to social isolation. Like it's like a cascading factor. And it's so easy to get stuck in that. And people will say, like, how do I change it? The medicine is to change it. Like, again, I said last week, nothing changes till something changes. The medicine is step outside of your comfort zone, pick up the phone. When I came here and I didn't know anybody and I met one person, I've since learned when there's somebody that I just feel like some connection with, I'll just say, hey, do you want to go for a hike? And I wouldn't have done that, I think, Steph, even 10 years ago. I think I was too stuck in my parental role, in my survival role. And now I feel like I can do that. And like the worst thing that's going to happen is someone says, no, it's not that horrible.
Yeah. Well, and so, okay, I'm going to throw you just an out of left field question.
Okay.
Where does sex fall into play?
Yeah, that's super important too for hormones, right? To change the hormones of the body, to get out of our mind, to get into our body. And for sure, that could be like, that's a pleasurable activity. And we don't do it. I mean, we can do it for an end result, but we do it for the play of it, right? Because it feels good. So play is play feels good. Some of us do it more than others. I'm pretty single. But I do think that that's a part of it too. And also, I'm just going to add, because we're going to talk eventually about the health of our bodies and the changes in our bodies in perimenopause and menopause. Like there are changes that come along with that are real changes. And there are desires that come along with that change, and they're real changes. So I don't want to diminish anybody who's saying, yeah, I have no desire in that. It's okay. It's okay. And maybe there's different ways of engaging in intimacy and play with a partner that doesn't necessarily include intercourse. So that's a whole other conversation to explore at a later date. So I want to just honor that as well. The other kind of play that I think is really, really fun to consider is what we call intergenerational play. And I'm not going to have that example as often now, but like my kids and I regularly would do games night, right? They come over for dinner every Sunday and we would play cards or we would play games. And sometimes it was just like, a 20-minute card game. But those kinds of activities are really wonderful for us. First of all, it gets us just interacting, sharing, talking, doing things together. It helps the hormones change in our body, so we all feel better at the end. But intergenerational play is a really important part of play.
I want to just tease this out a little bit because I actually think it's super, super important. My kids' generation, I believe, are far less, they see the boundaries between generations and age far less than we did. We grew up and it was like, you always call your friend's parents Mr. and Mrs. this, and they're always like over here. And I think we didn't benefit from what we can get from relationships with people outside of our generation. And I see now that, my daughter comes and hangs out with you.
Yeah.
Right. And she just loves
your daughter.
you.
I love your daughter.
And I'm not there. Just the two of them. Like they go and they hang out together, and she's getting so much out of it from someone who's in a totally different generation than her. But it's
we do tarot cards, we do meditations, we talk about life. It's so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't have that growing up. Like we just didn't. And I think there's so much value in that. But she doesn't see it as like, oh, I'm hanging out with an older person. She's like, I'm hanging out with somebody that I like and I want to spend time with. And I used to sit on the board of directors for Big Sisters, BC Lower Mainland, and I was a big sister myself for many years, and I still consider myself to be. I still have a relationship with the girl that I started working with when she was like 7. She's like 27 now. But I think that the for our kids to have relationships with people that are A, not their parents, and B, of a different generation is
Mm,
incredibly valuable. My kids
yeah,
grew up with their grandparents living in the house. So
yeah,
my grandparents, or their grandparents still live with their dad. And so, my son lives with them and has the experience of everything that he can learn from his grandfather and his grandmother. So I think intergenerational play is incredibly important because it's the way that you pass along wisdom and guidance and mannerisms and all of that sort of thing, in a format that's not like teaching, right?
yeah.
It's just an absorption. And I know that, I would hang out with my kids' friends. That sounds weird, but like not necessarily without them, but when I'm with them, it doesn't feel like a parent-child relationship. It feels like we're just people at different stages of our lives that get to have experiences together, right?
Yeah. This summer I was at a cottage for a week, and there was a range of people. There were let's call them the adults. Where's my hands there? The adults, right? They're the people that are the parents, and the kids. The kids now, quotation mark, are like 19 to 22. And I had just as much fun hanging out with the kids, the young adults. We would go on the dock dancing. Their parents didn't dance. No other older person dance. They would put on music. I would just waltz down to the dock and I would start dancing with them. And we had so much fun. I'd go swimming with them. And I have to say, I'm sure that they received a lot from me, but I also received a lot from them. And, I think it's really healthy to hang around younger people. I mean, when people are grandparents, hanging around with little ones keeps them very youthful because they have to move their bodies in a way that they may not normally move their bodies. And they get to enjoy the laughter and the connection piece. I don't have grandchildren yet, but these young adults teach me so much. And during COVID, we were in Ontario, and there was about a year and a bit that it was just my son and I living alone. Everything was online, no school, no social, no real work in person. And one of our survival strategies was to play Mario Kart. Or my daughter was already living in BC. We would set up the PS4 and we would play games at a distance. So we would play like Jeopardy or some of those games. And it was, for me, it was number one, a connection piece. Like, it was my way of bringing connection to my son, who I knew was really struggling. And it was an opportunity just to get out of our heads, to have fun, to get little hits of dopamine, because there wasn't a lot of dopamine going around my body those days. And just a great connection. So I think the intergenerational play, and I recognize that if I'm going to play, like, let's say my kiddo's now launched, but if I was going to play with a younger teenage boy, 15-year-old, if I had a kid that age or a nephew that age, I have to go into his play, right? So if he's playing Minecraft, let him explain Minecraft to me and teach me. Although I have to say, kids have tried to teach me Minecraft for at least 10 years and I don't get it.
I will say there's another thing that happens when, like, different generations can play with each other. Like, my daughter and I went to a big EDM festival, and I'm
Mm,
50,
mm,
and that's my music. Like, I love EDM, and I grew up in my 20s and 30s going to big EDM events, and that was my world. That's what I love. And she and I went to this big festival, which was kind of crazy. And we went, and she saw me just dancing my face off and like being part. And oftentimes, when she and I are together, she's the adult, right? Like, I'm the one dancing
I
crazy,
get
whatever.
it.
But we were both in the same place at that time, and we both absolutely. I was very proud because there were 2 nights, and one of the nights was like the OG kind of EDM music where people, like, that was the real heart of EDM. And then the second night was all of the more mainstream artists that what you might hear on, I don't know if anybody listens to the radio anymore, but like more mainstream for sure. And she was really excited to go to that. That was the one she wanted. But we went to both nights. And the first night for me was like heaven. It was like being in church, right? Like, she's like, you had your eyes closed the whole time and you were just dancing. Like, it was just, to me, that's amazing. Like, that's
Mhm.
my most favorite place to be. And then we went to the second night, and it was such a different crowd. And it was just like these like much younger crowd and much more mainstream crowd, and they were really kind of shitty. Like they were and she was like, "What is with everybody tonight? Like we had
Mm.
so much fun last night, and tonight it's just people are behaving poorly and they're being dicks and whatever." And then she's like, "I liked the first night better with that music." And I'm like, win, right? So we have
Yeah.
these connection points and they're very authentic, right? It's not
Yeah.
like I'm trying to fit into her world or she's trying to fit into mine. We just found this commonality that we both love. And
Yeah.
now we're going to go away for a trip together for 2 weeks in Europe. And she's just like, we need to find all of the electronic music events and have more of that experience because
Very good.
right. And so she gets to see that. I think we grew up with our parents so removed from us, like they're a different generation, a different
Yeah.
species. We never had any of those shared experiences and connection points. And I think that's incredibly, and so I always thought, oh, these people are not my people or whatever. But with our kids being able to have those connection points with us that are true and authentic, I think that like that helps them with feeling like there's more support around them and people who understand them and all of that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and it gives them permission to be like what you're modeling for your daughter is you're being unapologetically you. We've talked about this on this podcast. You are dancing, your eyes are closed, you're feeling your body, you're letting your body feel the music. And I'm just so impressed that your daughter was a yes to that, because my daughter would be and has been across the field pretending she doesn't know me because
Oh no, I've never had that with my kids.
can
My
be
kids
pretty
will
chaotic
never.
and ecstatic. Yeah.
Yeah,
My
we
daughter's
were
probably more
mortified.
conservative. My daughter's way more conservative than I am, although she's starting to open up a little bit, quite a bit more. But yeah, I think that's beautiful. And I love that she got the imprint of the open, like what it feels like when one is open in the expression of their joy, which is what you're doing when you're dancing. And what happens when there's, I don't know, like the word that comes to mind is some toxicity or unhealthy expressions that you might have expressed or received on the second day. This is just my assumption.
Yeah, just like a different crowd
Yeah.
and not the same thing. But that is where I've found my true joy is live music, being in that experience with
Yeah.
like in a crowd of, and she rolled with it. We were in a crowd of
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people,
Nice.
and she was just like right in there in the pit, and she just handled herself, and it was amazing. But that is true. Like if I could say, where have I experienced absolute true authentic joy, it's been in the live music. Even when we're up on the gondola
Yeah.
and they were playing ABBA, like I grew up on ABBA, and there's just like, you know how you have this like imprinting
Yeah.
that it's ABBA for me. If I hear ABBA, I like my whole body just leans into it. And do you remember that time that we were there and it was all ABBA? I was just like, I was in ecstasy, like
Yeah.
just so happy. And
Yeah.
that's where I've found my joy is in live music and dancing and yeah.
That's why we're
You
friends,
talked
my friend.
yeah, you talked about another type of play, which is spiritual play. And I'm super interested in hearing more about this because spirituality can be very disciplined and very, like, I don't equate it with play.
Yeah. Yeah. And traditional spirituality, I mean, you sit on the mat and you're still and you're quiet and you do it for a certain amount of time and you try to block out all distractions. And if you succeed, perhaps then you will become enlightened. And the spirituality that I practice and teach, like, and let's not even call it enlightenment. Let's call it like awakening, is a moment to moment experience. It's not something that happens when, it's something that's available whenever we can be in the present moment creative flow of life. And in that moment, no matter what, I'll speak personally, whatever, no matter what I am doing, that is play. So sometimes it could be doing yoga. Sometimes it's sitting watching a sunset. Sometimes it's like climbing a really challenging hike. Sometimes it's, playing pickleball. Often it's just sitting and feeling my feelings. And so there's this understanding, and I'd love to do a podcast in the future on this, on masculine, feminine energy. And the masculine energy that we all have is the containment. It's the container. It's the holding of everything that changes. The changing being the feminine energy. So our feelings, our emotions are feminine energy. The container, my willingness to see them, to feel them, to hold space for them, that's masculine. when I can be in that container and allow whatever's moving through me, even if it's grief for my son not being here, that's playful because it's aliveness. I feel alive. I feel vitality. I feel curiosity. Those are all the elements of play. So I believe that we're redefining spiritual well-being to be more flexible, more in flow, less strict and directive. And it's sort of the way it was established. I'm going to just call it out. The way it was established, thousands of years ago by men.
One
And
of my clients, and who's also become a good friend of mine, and we just did a huge launch today with her, but a lot of her work is around spirituality, but not for the sake of spirituality, reaching into the spiritual place, however you define that, whether it's God, universe, source, or whether it's something of your own creation, which I feel like I've kind of got. Whatever your spirituality is, like, you need to get back to this inner child. And I know that she talks a lot about this. And one of the things that we did, this is actually super interesting. I was at her event down in Florida last year in December. And one of the things that she made us do was get up and just like do a big exercise that was all about just being your inner wild child. And I was so uncomfortable. And all of her stuff is very like all entwined with spirituality and being able to be playful and know what, and ask for what you want and be really playful about what you want. And when you can look at it that way, I will tell you what I have manifested this year is pretty freaking remarkable after doing that work with her. And I think that what was so interesting for me to watch is she has this amazing audience and this amazing community of women that come to her events and that do all this work with her, and they are unabashed. They are like unapologetic about being as, wild and crazy and playful as you want. And, they come dressed in these like crazy clothes that are expressions of themselves. And I was just sitting there being like, I don't know how to do this. And so I'm like, maybe we should take note of that, right? I just had no idea. It was so uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, we would call that a shadow range for you, right? This free feminine flow expression of play and creativity and how it's manifested in the way they dress and the way they move. The discomfort that any one of us may have around that, which I would say like me too, especially up until about 2017, a massive discomfort around that. That's a shadow. And once I was able to call out my shadow, meet my shadow, love my shadow, and then integrate my shadow with love and light, it's no longer a shadow. And so it's beautiful that we have people in the world that are so in play in a very organic way that it gives the rest of us a model of what play can look like. And, I've seen you dancing, Steph, and I know you're bringing that out through your dance, and me too. And yeah, I think we're all here. We're all on a journey of guiding each other, opening up to each other, and learning as we go.
So here's a great way for us to sort of wrap this up. So I'm sure that we've got folks listening who are kind of going, all right, I get it. Like, this is a thing, but it's so not me right now. And I don't know how I get there. And if you're listening to us right now, please feel free to pop in and say hi. We'd love to hear from you. But how do we start making this a priority in our lives? How do we start giving ourselves permission to prioritize play? Because I have this constant voice in my head saying, this is selfish. This doesn't matter. You've got much more important things. Why aren't you spending your time, taking care of your kids or working or whatever?
Cleaning the house. Yeah. So let me go quickly through again the science of play, because if you understand why it's essential, you're more likely to buy into it. So the cognitive domain of play boosts memory, attention, problem solving, and slows decline and Alzheimer's in the future. And my friends, like, the future's not that far away. So what we do now can really make a difference. Physical play, I don't know that we need to say much about that. We know it enhances strength, mobility, balance, reduces fall risks, all those things. Social play, super important to counter isolation and to create a sense of belonging. And the emotional and creative play, the dancing, the you talked about knitting and music playing and writing, and all those creative energies relieve stress and creates purpose and creativity. So that's sort of the how play helps. When we're looking at what you can do, I mean, it could be super, super simple right now. If you're looking at cultivating creative play and you don't want to go too far out of your comfort zone, there are adult coloring books that we can buy, and you can just start coloring again. It's meditative, it's mindful, it's creative, and it helps to relax the brain. And so adult coloring books is one of the ways to incorporate creative play. And we look at kids like, man, they've got it. Like, kids don't ask, why am I coloring? They just color because it's joyful. So that's one of the ways we can do for creative play: writing journals, taking photograph, like photography, going out into nature, which, by the way, helps to boost all the feel-good chemicals and hormones in our body, counter stress, playing a game of cards, maybe joining, there's different groups. I'm not a bridge player at all. I play crib with my daughter at least a couple of times a month. Dancing, crossword puzzles or sudokus, those kinds of things, super good. And then your physical play. And the other thing I would say is get out in nature as much as possible and simply stop and observe and listen and feel the ground. There's an energy that moves through you when you come into stillness in nature that lights up our entire emotional energetic system. And even if you're just, you just step outside. For me, it's easy. I've got this massive, monstrous rock outside of as my viewpoint, my point of view, called the Chief. And I just stand and stare at it. And I'm in awe when I stare at it. It is so massive. And I just take a few breaths. And that can be play. And I want to, I'll just pause there. I'll add one more thing after. Anything to add, Steph?
Well, I still think that there's a step before, right? Because those are all examples of things that we can do to play, but getting to the point where you are giving yourself permission to play, I think that's still the big stumbling block. Is I don't feel like I should. I don't feel like there's a step before even deciding what you're going to do. It's knowing yourself well enough to discover that, but also getting out of that narrative that, and it's not even conscious narrative. It's kind of like this little thing in the back of your head that says there's more important things for you to do. And that's been our narrative all our lives, right?
Yeah, it's our conditioning for sure. So I think if you can remember the science of it, if you remember why it's important, that playful engagement enhances mental sharpness, physical well-being, social connection, and emotional joy. If you can remember that, then it takes, you're going to, there's going to be a sense of moving outside of the comfort zone. And until I was 55, I didn't play. I mean, did I play much? I would play a little bit of tennis. I would do my yoga. I would do some outings with girlfriends, but my play was with my kids. So I had more of the intergenerational play, and to start moving into the other aspects of play or the other domains of play took a leap of faith. Like, I had to jump into something very unknown. I had to risk being rejected, which, that's not a big factor for me. I don't really fear rejection. And I had to choose one thing. So, I'm going to go out and just say once more, if you don't want to step into something very different, just start doing a puzzle, right? Go to a trivia night maybe in your community and don't participate. Just be there. Just listen to it. I think that would be really, really good. And then maybe get out in nature a little bit. Laughing is so good. Like, oh my gosh, I watch some reels sometimes. I have to say they're usually doodle reels because I have a doodle and I'm obsessed with her. And my son, when he was still living here, would come into my bedroom and wonder why I was laughing till I'm almost falling off the bed. And it was like this silly doodle video that just reminded me so much of my doodle. So laughter is a really important part of play as well.
So I'm going to come back to this because I still think that there's something to be said here. But I know that when I sit down and do a puzzle, the constant narrative in my head is there's something else you should be doing. And so we do have to very consciously work through and condition ourselves to move out of that narrative and understand that there's a really, really important piece of our lives that we're not cherishing and that we're not exercising. And so this is like any mindset activity where you have to have the constant narrative in your head saying, I'm actually uncomfortable doing this because I feel like I'm not holding up my responsibilities for some other part in your life. And so we have to develop the narrative that helps us through that. And for me, it's always been like, how do I feel when I'm not focusing on something I'm responsible for? And I want to condition myself to feel more of that. So I don't think it's just about deciding. I think that there's actually some struggle there, that maybe it's when you're closer to just coming out of, this life of being so responsible for your kids, but it's like, it is going to take some mindset work and a very conscious, deliberate narrative inside your head to be, helping yourself through it, because it sounds silly, but it's actually really true. And I'm in the spin right now. I'm in the cycle of constant work.
Yeah, so that's the Byron Katie work, right? That's The Works by Byron Katie. Like, how do you know it's true? How do you feel when you believe in this? So it's, first of all, the first step is to notice that you're having that thought. Like, most people don't notice. They just get up, abort what was bringing them joy, and go do something that they think they, quotation marks, should do. So when you can start to notice that that's happening, paying attention, this is why I love meditation. Meditation allows me to be in control of my mind. It lets me start to witness my thoughts, to notice them before they actually create an action that takes me out of something that's really healthy. Because like everybody else, like I could be doing more work. I could be doing more in my community, in my home, and I choose to play. And when people said, how was my summer? I said it was the best because I played all summer. There were always competing things for my attention. It's not like those things ever go away. And yet, it's moving from unconscious programming to conscious choice. And then again and again and again. And eventually we start to rewire, reprogram the brain and tell ourselves, you know what? It's okay to play. It's okay.
Not only is it okay, it's important.
It's essential. Yeah.
It's important. That's right. So this feels like a good place for us to shut down the conversation. You had something else that you wanted to
just a quote. Well. Yeah, it's one of my favorite quotes. I've been using it in yoga for at least 10, 15 years. It's, you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's good to remember. Yeah.
All right. What are we talking about next week?
What do you want to talk about next week?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I've got some ideas. We'll connect. I've got some ideas. I think we do have to, I'd love to move towards the health and wellness.
That's going to be like
the middle
hour. Yeah, that'll be like an 8-hour episode.
Yeah. And then I'd love to get into a little bit more about how do we pulsate and balance masculine, feminine energy, because women, particularly in our ages, have been so conditioned to activate our masculine energy that we get into this point where maybe that's not so much needed, and we don't even know how to activate feminine energy. And feminine energy doesn't mean like girly energy. It's about receiving and softness and flow, and has nothing to do with men in your life. This is just for you. So, we have a list of topics, friends. And for those of you listening, if you have any ideas, please send us your suggestions, and that will help us to prioritize our conversations.
All right. We'll have a link in the show notes to the guide that Diana's put together for us around play. And as always, we appreciate having you here. I know we have a couple of people still watching us live right now. Hello. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we are so excited to be having these conversations finally every week. And we'll see you next week at the same time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Middle Ages. If you loved this episode, follow the show, leave a review, and share it with someone who's rewriting the rules of midlife too. Because around here, we believe midlife isn't the end of anything. It's the start of everything. See you next time.